We'll dismiss the kids' corner. We're in the middle of our Best Summer Ever series, and I'm back to, when I think of summer, I think of baseball. I still have my glove. I still oil it every year, even though I know I'm not going to get out there and play again. There's something comforting about knowing that the baseball glove in the house is oiled. This is perfect. I don't even have to close my hand around it. It's so well broken in. I was a good baseball player. I was not a great baseball player. I was not a star. I was not a somebody. I was what you call, I was just a guy. I wanted to be one of the best, but I was one of the okay, the good. I had moments, but they were too fleeting, and they were not always that trustworthy. Too often I did not get to hit, or make the throw, or make the clean grab, but I wanted to. I think that's the way it is with a lot of us. We have these expectations. We have these high hopes, and it just doesn't happen. I know I showed these a couple weeks ago. This is my youth, in case you weren't there. At the picture on the left, I am in the bottom row far right. My little brother, who I think is on his knees, or he's probably standing up. He can barely be seen behind me. And then all the kids in the neighborhood are around me, the National City Bank team. And then there was on the one on the right, there's the back row, there's the coach. I'm the second one in from the right from the coach. The one with the insanely too long of hair that my mother let me out of the house with. And baseball was what marked our life and marked time in our neighborhood. Some of you remember, literally in late February or March, there might be snow on the ground, and when we had that first 50-degree day, we would kind of shovel off a 60-foot or 65-foot area to let the sun melt at first, and we would immediately begin to play catch. And so baseball was what marked our life. I'm reading out of Philippians chapter 1, verses 4 through 6. This is a very well-known passage. I'm going to ask you to stand. And you are very familiar with this. Paul is writing to perhaps his, favorite church. He had a very good relationship with the Church of Philippi, and he writes this: "In all my prayers for all of you, I always pray with joy, because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ." You may be seated. See, we have a common problem, all of us. We are not as good, we're not as talented, we're not as complete as we think we are. We're probably not as good and talented and complete as we would like to be. One of the things the church has taught for 2,000 years is something better. We might not even be that good, at least naturally. In fact, we're inclined the other way. We find it very easy to live imperfectly. We find it very easy to almost live in rebellion. Sometimes we strive and we try, and we find failure always right there. Some of you, like my wife and I, have become quite addicted to the daily thing called Wordle. And you start your day with Wordle. I had, until about 3 months ago, I think I was on a 400-some day streak. And it came to an end. Now I'm back on an 86 or 88 day streak or something like that. And it's just when you think you got everything down, something happens. Or you find out you're at a word, one of those words where you kind of know what it is at the third guess, but there's now 4 other options available. You have 4 of the 5 letters, but there's still 4 different words you can make, but you only have 3 guesses left. That's the way it was when I lost my streak. And I forget, it might have been like, it could have been prime or pride or something like that, where you could just, by insertion of a letter. We try to do good. Paul writes about this in Romans 7. We try to do good, we think we do good, and yet we still find sin clinging to us in uncomfortable ways. Other parts of life, we try new tasks all the time, and we fail. We try, we see the results, and we try again, and we see the results, and sometimes we give up. Have any of you ever gone to the store and you need a cabinet, you need a piece of furniture, and you buy that Souder furniture that comes in a box and you have to assemble it yourself? And have you ever gotten done and it's standing and it looks good and it looks like it does on the box, and you look down in your bag and you got 2 bolts, a nut, and a washer? And someone says, well, you didn't do it right. Do you want me to tear it down again and start from scratch? No. And I know sometime a year from now, 18 months from now, I'll be sitting somewhere at the desk and I'll just go to hit a K on the computer, very light, and the whole thing will collapse. I know that's going to happen. But we try. Some of us have a lot of experience in having other people tell us we are inadequate and we don't measure up. Some of us have a voice we hear because it was a sound we heard growing up. It could have been a parent, it could have been a brother, it could have been a friend. You are too short, you are too tall. You're too heavy, you're too skinny. You've got too many pimples. You had to wear glasses too early. You had all these things. You're too much of this. You'll never amount to anything. And sometimes after a while, one of the voices that tells ourselves that is our own. And we fight ourselves. And sometimes in the midst of trying something very, very important, might I also suggest that sometimes Satan is a voice that tells us, you can't do this. You are inadequate. You'll never measure up. There's no way that you can ever pull this off. Our response, how do we normally react when we have these times in our life? And all of us do. Sometimes we are very impatient. We are impatient because we want to do it perfectly. I'm sure that I'm looking at least in some areas of life, a room full, not everybody, a room full, at least in some area of life, of perfectionists. You want certain things to be done in a certain way. Here's some fun that I bet some of you have experienced. Have any of you perfectionists married another perfectionist, and your idea of perfection is 2 different things? Let the fun begin. Maybe you can have good in that someone marries a perfectionist with 50% of life, and you find someone else that's a perfectionist in 50% of life, and your non-50% is what the other one doesn't care about. So each of you can take care of your 50% and make a nice whole. That tends to not work out that way, but perhaps it's possible. We get impatient. We think it should happen, and we get so on edge because it's not quite perfect. Tuesday, I saw a perfectionist, and he was an 8-year-old boy. I had to be in a meeting down south far southwest suburb, and I was there for a few hours and was on the way back, and it was late afternoon, and I thought, well, I'm not going to fight traffic. It's a good thing I have my golf clubs in my trunk. And I pulled off and was playing a place called Cog Hill. Some of you know where that might be in Lamont. And I got stuck with I got put with a father and his 8-year-old son. It is very possible 15, 18 years from now, you will see this 8-year-old on TV as a professional golfer. He is a prodigy. He hit everything so good. He hit some fantastic shots that he was absolutely mad about because it wasn't perfect. And one of the things he was dealing with his dad was telling him, you can't get this upset over less than perfect. And he's right. Sometimes in life, we get so burned out when we want things to be perfect. Last time I checked, there's no perfect people. There's also not perfect marriages. There's great marriages. There's blessed marriages. But there's going to be a day in there somewhere, one day in 50 years, where your favorite person on the planet might not be the person you're married to. Going way out on a limb here. Your child is going to do something not perfect. Impatience corrodes over time. Or we could just end up depressed. What use is there? I tried. It didn't work. Might as well give up. That's what a lot of people do. Probably what we shouldn't do. We fight feelings of failure all the time. Sometimes we fight feelings of failure to the point because this next thing didn't go right, and we completely ignore the whole host of things in our life that have gone right. I've even met people so wanting to have everything go just right that because they're not guaranteed it's going to go perfect, they get paralysis. They do nothing. And they sit. You ever had a friend that kind of got stuck and things started to pile up around them? And because they didn't know where to start, they didn't start anywhere? And it just kept going? I've had people and I've said, man, get a shovel and start digging. Where do I begin? Don't care. Just start. And we can end up in a very hopeless place. I think Paul expressed that at the end of Romans 7. When he ends up at the end of that chapter, when he talks about the good I want to do, that I don't do, but the evil I do is right here beside me. And he ends up going, what a wretched man that I am. I think we can find ourselves there. What I'm most thankful this morning is the power of grace. Now, I'm not lauding license here. There are voices that say, don't worry about it. Whatever you do, God will forgive. So just keep doing what we're doing. Have no thoughts of changing. Just keep going about it. Keep going back to the sewer, the gutter, the dirt pile, the mud that continually affects you. God will forgive you. Don't worry about it. And while I'm sure God will forgive, I think we should probably not do the things that are leading to the damage to start with. The voices that say you don't need to be discerning. We do need to be discerning. We do need to understand some things that are damaging. Too many today live in a way where there's no difference between our lives and the lives of the world. All right, here's where I'm gonna, this is in baseball, I'm gonna throw an inside fastball right here. All right, ready? I'm not meant to do a brushback pitch, but I'm throwing an inside fastball. Sometimes we run into people today that that condemn. Look at what the world thinks about these other things, and they might be right, but let me tell you, if in the last 40 years, if the church had lived its life differently, we'd have a different culture. If our homes, if our marriages were different and places of grace and an example, the culture would be different. Yes, God will forgive. But that doesn't mean we don't strive to be better. It doesn't mean we don't work with discipline. It doesn't mean we don't try to live in accordance with God's will. I get frustrated when Christians do not attempt to prioritize obedience and faithfulness. I was listening. I know that Isabel Weitzel, the last 3 days, had orientation at Olivet. And 40 years ago this week, wow, how's that possible? 40 years ago, I had my orientation weekend at Olivet. I met a whole bunch of different people that first day, one of which I'm married to right now. That day. Now, it was not love at first sight, especially on her end. I did not get off to a good start. Some of you have heard that story. I did not get off to a good start at all. But anyway, then when you start, hey, she's cute. Hey, all those things. And all those things where you're interested. One thing that never entered my mind in those first months of dating, I am picking the person who's going to tell the doctor when to pull the plug. I'm marrying the person that after hip surgery is going to be putting on my socks and shoes. Faithfulness is important. We have a culture that doesn't talk about it like we should. We go to a 50th anniversary, and the couple comes out, and they hold hands and maybe give each other a kiss, and everybody goes, "Aw." And it's not because of looks at that point. It's because people realize that faithfulness is present. And it's a powerful thing. Grace is always the standard. And as frustrated as I get when people don't try to keep striving, I also get frustrated by those who hold personal perfection as the standard. Look at me. Look at all the things that I don't do, and look at all the things that I do well. You all should be just like me. My effort, my discipline, my success, or whatever is never the standard. Grace is always the standard. Because I will never be a Christian because of my effort. I will never be a Christian because of my personal morality. I'll never be a Christian because of my wise choices. I am part of God's family because of what Jesus did on the cross and that he rose again 3 days later. That is always the standard. And so, let me tell you a truth this morning. A truth that I learned in baseball. Your life will be marked by failure. Let me say that again. Your life will be marked by failure. Everybody here. All of us. Oh, you'll find failure in a familiar place. Everybody in here struggles with a weakness. I don't know what that is. It could be gossip, it could be pride, it could be lust, it could be greed, it could be anger, it could be a whole host of things. It could be an inordinate amount of fear, it could be lack of trust, it could be, we could go on and on and on. We all struggle with a weakness, but our weaknesses are different. But none of us are immune. At some point, you'll discover a significant blind spot in your life and be disappointed that that blind spot existed. Well, there's a reason they call them blind spots. Because you don't usually see them until your beloved spouse or one of your wonderful children points them out to you. You will, in a host of different ways, step up to the plate and strike out. You just will. Sometimes you strike out because it's your fault. Sometimes it's a 3-1 pitch and it's a fastball right down the middle, and for some stupid reason you don't swing. Well, that was your chance right there. Sometimes you come to the plate and you can do everything right, and that pitcher will start you off the first pitch with a curveball. If you swing at a first pitch curveball, you deserve what happens to you. And he just happens to throw it across the plate. Now you're behind. And now he throws another one on the corner, and you're just playing defense now, and now it's 0-2. You can do whatever you want, and that pitcher's thrown 2 perfect pitches, and if he's going to do that, you're at his mercy. Nobody hits well on an 0-2 pitch. Some of us feel like we fail most of the time. Or we feel like we didn't perform as well as we'd like to. We'd like to see more success. We'd like to see it a little better, and it doesn't really happen. And it feels like, man, I bet I fail 70% of the time. Boy, that's depressing. There's a name for a person that fails 70% of the time. And you're thinking, I know, failure. You know what they call that person in baseball? A Hall of Famer. If you hit 300 in baseball, you're a Hall of Famer. There'll be times in life you try to reach out and you'll be ignored. You ever legitimately try to do something good and you feel like you get smacked around for it? You will be betrayed by a friend. You will attempt to do a good thing. You might even attempt to do a great thing, and it won't work out. And you'll go, why on earth did I try? Because we're called to try. You can't guarantee it's going to succeed. Isaiah said, here am I, send me. God did not follow up with, oh, good, now that you're going, I guarantee that everybody will listen to you. Read the rest of Isaiah. That's not what happened. I want to know what in the world... I want to know why God called Ezekiel. Ezekiel, he was nuts. He built a little sandcastle in the middle of a street, and he laid on his side and put a board between him and the sandcastle. And he laid there for like 300, I got to go back and look the number, 300 and some days. And then he got up and they go, oh, look, the guy's getting up. And he went to the other side of the sandcastle and laid on his other side and put the board between them again for like 40 days. And he's saying, God is no longer watching over you, northern kingdom, southern kingdom. And he was just doing like a little performance artist piece. They didn't listen to Ezekiel either. Prophets had a rough time of getting people to listen to them. Some people then walk away mad. We were not promised success. We were only promised His presence. And we're promised eternal life. We need to be people attempting great things. Inventors try hundreds of things in hope of finding that next one big invention. Thomas Edison was criticized that it took him so long to invent the light bulb. And they said, what did you learn in the process? One of the most famous quotes, he goes, I learned thousands of ways not to invent a light bulb. Capital investors invest in numerous companies with the hopes of one hitting it big and making up all the difference. Churches try a host of things to find a thing that helps people, that makes a difference. I heard one leader said, we routinely expect 80 of the things we do to fail. But that's the price to find the 20% that changes things. I think that's right. Some of you had a baby with colic. How many hundreds of things did you try in the hopes of getting some silent moments in the house? I've known people that aimlessly drove around dark cities at 3 a.m. in their pajamas because the baby would be quiet. Failure is not a reason ever to pull back. In fact, you are assuredly not the failure you think you are. I bet all of you, I've been around enough people at enough funerals and enough times, and when you go to people and they say, oh, what do you remember about mom or dad? And when we're parents, oh, I hope they say the vacation we saved for when we went here when they were 12. No, I hear people go, I would pay anything to hold my mother's hand again, or to hear my father's voice. You're not the failure you think you are. Look at the life of Paul. The church in Galatians, the church in Galatia rejected him. The church in Thessalonica was a mess. Philippi was the only one that seemed to kind of be on really good terms with. Let's not even talk about Corinth. I think when Paul died, I think Paul really sat and wondered, has it been worth it? Did I really make the difference? And I think if he looked around, that question would really be something that was on his mind. The evidence there would not be enough to him to be convinced that everything had gone well. I think Paul would have said, I struck out. I don't know how many of you, I mentioned last week, 2 weeks ago at General Assembly, I was at the Sunday night service, and David Busich was speaking, and it was a really wonderful message. I don't know if anybody went back. There's a part of it, if you want to go home and listen to him tell it much better, it's at 1 hour, 17 minutes, and 14 seconds. I'll text it to you later if you want to know when this particular story starts. He tells the story of this couple that didn't have children. They lived in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. Scottsbluff, Nebraska, it's not the end of the world, but you can see it from there. This is not a big town. I think there's a little river that runs through. If it weren't for that river, there'd be no trees. And it's pretty out there. And there was a couple, and they felt like they needed to adopt. And they went to an orphanage, went to a home. It was just a home of, I forget what they call it, wayward children. I think it was something like that. And they went in and said, we would like to adopt a child. And they started talking about all these small children and babies, and this couple goes, no. We want your hardest child to locate. And they went, oh, that's Bobby. And so they went back. Bobby was 17 years old. Bobby had been in 8 different homes. And Bobby was tough to place because when he was a child, he'd had polio. And so it impacted him physically. He kind of walked with a stoop. He didn't have as good a control maybe on some physical movement. It affected his speech a little bit. He slurred, and it was hard. And this was a young Nazarene couple. They wanted Bobby. And Bobby went home. And they said, hey, we just want you to know that you are loved. There was something about that couple that hit Bobby just right. And so he became comfortable. He went to church. A few months later, he was baptized. He got to a point and he said, I think I want to be part of the ministry. I think I want to be a pastor. Here's the problem. Bobby didn't have any high school education because of him being in and out of houses. So he couldn't And so he couldn't go to college because he had no transcript. Nothing qualified him to get in. But some of the church said, hey, I know someone. There's a college down in Oklahoma City called, at that point, Bethany Nazarene University. It's Southern Nazarene University now. They have a position there. They want someone for maintenance. And you're kind of good with fixing things. So he went down and he started a 23-year career being a maintenance person at Southern Nazarene University, and became the person that everybody knew and was everybody's friend. And he would go up to everybody. He would go up to the person no one else seemed to care about, because Bobby had been that person for 17 years. And there's other physical ailments. So Bobby died when he was 50. It was a relatively young death. And there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that came to Bobby's funeral. And remember, Dr. Busich was giving a sermon. And he said, let me tell you why I'm giving you the story of Bobby. He said, excuse me, I'm giving you a story of Bobby because Bobby was my dad. Now, that was a powerful moment. Flipping back to baseball. This was the 9th home that Bobby Busich had went in. Do you know what they were batting? All the foster parents? You know what Bobby's average was in homes? It wasn't 300. It wasn't 200. It was 111. 111 doesn't even get you in the big leagues. 111 doesn't even get you in the minor leagues. Our task is to be faithful. Our task is to keep swinging. And you might say, but I'm only batting about 111. Your 111 might make all the difference. Not only in the lives of a person, but in all the lives to follow. So in the midst of your life, in the midst of the things you think should be going better, my challenge to you is don't stop. Don't give up. Stay faithful. That's your task. God can use even a 111 hitter.